Having space where fans can connect, be rewarded, compete, show off, and have fun outside of matches. It's a transformation of how the community comes together, and we really want you to see it to understand it. So just a tiny peek here. Let's take a look.
That was a tiny peek. I want more.
That was a little tinier than I expected, OJ.
So when we see more, when we can see more of this?
Well, you know, it's coming to E3, MP on the floor. For us, that's the first time Sledgehammer Games has been able to bring it to fans. Fans are coming to the conference, so it's going to be big. We're going to bring all that to you at E3.
That is going to be excellent.
Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys. I'm sorry to interrupt. I mean, multiplayer sounds sensational, but after reading other people's questions, I want to ask one of my own. Now, I know that there may or may not be some sort of co-op mode within World War II. Now, I am quite a big Zombies fan, and there is a lot of people watching around the world that are also in the same boat as me. So we're all asking right here, right now, what can you tell us about this co-op mode?
Absolutely nothing. No. Sorry. Yeah, you know, our third mode is it's an entirely new story, and it's a pretty horrifying experience, sort of like your office. You know, for Michael and I, it's our first horror game in years, and we're really, really psyched about it. It's the story of the Third Reich's desperate attempt to create an army in the final stages of the war. We can't wait to share more. In fact, should we show a little something? Just a little tiny little peek.
Yeah. Whoa! Whoa! It's Dalek before makeup.
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. Guys, I mean, this says very little, and normally I would be a little disappointed, but how can I be when, I mean, that just looks incredible. I would ask for more, but I'm probably going to get a no, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
At least I tried.
That is a Nazi zombie on the biggest cinema screen in the United Kingdom.
Yes.
And I think that is a fabulous way to end this first look at the Call of Duty World War II than that. It has been an absolute ton of fun, and it's been great having you guys here as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. You know, our hearts are full being able to share with fans, and we hope fans are just as excited about Call of Duty World War II as we are to make it. Without a doubt, it really is the most personal and powerful game I've ever worked on, and I know we can speak for all the developers at Sledgehammer Games when I say that we're holding nothing back for November.
Yeah, and you know, our thanks again for the support. This game is for you, and I'm sure Michael would agree. We've talked about this before, that this is the best game we've ever made.
The best game.
The best
game.
Yes.
There you go. So thank you very much to Glenn and to Michael from Sledgehammer Games. It is going to be such a wait till November the 3rd, it really is. So stick it in your iCal, tattoo it to the inside of your eyelids. November the 3rd, that is when this new Call of Duty, going back to its root, is coming out. World War II with this game. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep in touch via the social channels. How should we leave it? The way we came in. Let's have another look at that trailer.
This day is set upon a mighty endeavor. Souls will be shaken with the violences of war. In this hour of great sacrifice, we shall prevail.
Get your head down and keep moving!
We are all that separates the world from darkness. The enemy is ruthless. We cannot, we must not fail.
Duty first. Hey! Won't be enough for you! We executed the mission. Get me the fuck out of here! How many? We had orders! Get to cover! Lieutenant, tell them what we're all about. No mission too difficult. sacrifice too great.
Welcome to the Bloody First. You're a long way from Texas, farm boy.
Pre-order now and get access to the private beta.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, your first look at Call of Duty World War II. I'm Damon Hatfield. This is Marty Sleva.
Hey, everyone.
So much to talk about. We want to know what you think of the new Call of Duty game. Tweet your comments and questions at IGN using the hashtag CODWWII.
Yeah.
We're going to break down everything we just saw, and Marty has a lot more information to share.
Yeah,
He's already
absolutely.
seen the game.
Yeah, so obviously we've seen the trailer. That was a bulk of what we saw in terms of in-game footage, which we're airing right now. But yeah, I got to see a ton more from this, including full run-throughs of the Normandy D-Day level and the Hurtgen Forest. So just starting off, I think one of the most interesting details is this is not a globe-trotting World War II game. This is a very sort of specific game that takes place in France, it takes place in Germany, and it takes place in Belgium. There's no Pacific Front, there is no Northern Africa, there's no Italy, it doesn't sound like there's Russia. And sort of the reason behind that was because everyone at Sledgehammer said that they didn't want to tell a greatest hits of World War II. They wanted, they didn't want to sort of Forrest Gump it, where you're traveling through history and you're somehow at every single pivotal moment. And so, yeah, they wanted to tell the sort of in-depth story of Red Daniels, named Red after Glenn Schofield's father, who passed away during the development. You're a 19-year-old kid from Texas. You are not a superhero. Which is probably the thing I find most interesting about this game from what I've seen is Call of Duty, especially since Modern Warfare and beyond, you've gotten more and more powers to where you can wall run, you can double jump, you can ground pound. This is not you. You are a kid who's way younger than the two of us who enlisted because he wanted to serve his country, got a gun shoved in his chest, and a couple weeks later he's at the beachhead at Normandy.
Yeah. Specifically, they said taking place during the years of 44 to 45.
Yeah. So this is the tail end of the war. Obviously, starting. It seems like D-Day is going to be a pivotal moment at the start of at the start of the game. And we saw it here at the beginning of the trailer. Playing it again. So I saw this level. It begins. You're here. You're in the landing craft. You're approaching the beach.
This is Normandy.
This is Normandy.
And do we know if this is where the game starts?
It seems like they hinted at a prologue. So there's going to be something that takes place back in Texas.
Okay.
And there's sort of a moment. It sounded like between you and your father, who was also a war hero
From
World War I. Yeah. But it seems like this is the first major mission in the game. And we've seen this mission done before in Medal of Honor and different Call of Duty games.
It's been a long time since we had a Normandy
absolutely.
mission in a video game.
And one thing is, you see this and you're like, oh, obviously these shots look pretty, but this is just, this is one of those trailers. No, the game in action looks incredible. So, going through the Normandy level, the thing that stood out to me most, right at the beginning, you fall out of the craft, the water is just, caked in blood, and you run up to the beach, and the first thing you do is the player dove headfirst into the sand in front of a hedgehog, which are those, metal X's. And so it was like, Call of Duty has become this game where you power slide into things, into cover, whereas this was a kid diving into the sand, pretty much covering his head in fear.
And does that offer any sort of gameplay mechanic? Does that provide you cover?
I mean, it seems like that was the thing, is you are diving forward and covering your head, and that is the cover here. Which is also interesting because, this is Normandy. We're going through Normandy, the liberation of Paris. We're pushing into Germany. And the thing about this is you have to rely on your teammates and your squad mates so much in this game. And the fact of the matter is there's no regenerating health in this game, which is weird because that's been a given pretty much since Halo. Is that if you get shot and you hide behind a rock, you can recover.
Red will splatter on the screen, and then you just have to wait for that to go away.
Yeah, and so the thing here is, they're really talking about your team as a whole is you have to find your medic. And so you are shot, you're wounded, you're sort of limping around, and you have to find wherever your medic is, go up to him, and he'll be able to heal you. If you're running out of ammo, you have to find someone else who can toss you a clip, which I find really interesting. Again, I don't know how this is going to play mechanically, and again, I don't know how people who sort of grew up on Modern Warfare are going to take to that, but I find it really interesting and just sort of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we were talking about in our pre-show coverage, there was a time when everyone was sick of World War II shooters. Yeah. And now it seems kind of refreshing to go back to.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And
I mean, the last time we were there was on last-gen hardware, so I definitely want to see World War II rendered on current gen.
Yeah, absolutely.
technology.
And obviously, we got a little taste of, you play as Red, but then we had the cast come out, most notably Josh Duhamel from the Transformers movies, who plays Sergeant
Mr.
Pearson.
Fergie.
Mr. Fergie as well. And so I think we have like a high-res shot of his character that we could pull up. But the interesting thing to me about him is that you have these two sort of surrogate father figures in this game. Sergeant Pearson, who is one of those by any means necessary. He is the person who wants to.
This is
Josh Duhamel's character, and it's complete the mission. It doesn't matter the cost, and that's one of those like. I don't think there's a bad guy in this game. I asked them in your last game.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin
Is there
Spacey.
a villain? Yeah.
I don't think so. I think the war itself is the bad guy. I don't think you're going to fight like Emperor Nazi. Well, that's probably Hitler. You're probably not going to fight Hitler in this game. I think there's a good
Not Mecha Hitler.
Not Mecha Hitler. But yeah, so it seems like the push and pull is between Sergeant Pearson's, by any means necessary, and then Lieutenant Turner, who is more about, he needs to bring his men out alive. And there's no really right or wrong answer to that, which I find interesting. I feel like there's a moral gray spot there, and that's going to be where a lot of the friction in the story comes from.
Well, yeah, and that makes me wonder if there's any sort of game mechanic there where there's going to be player choice.
I think that'd be really cool.
Which way you go.
Yeah, which wouldn't be a first time in Call of Duty. Black Ops 2 had a thing where it wasn't like giant branching narratives, but there were moments where you could make choices that affected how missions would play out later on, how you would miss certain missions. There'd be certain aesthetic changes to the game, and I think it'd be really interesting to sort of ultimately have to side with the creed of one of these two men.
I think the trailer gave us glimpses of most of the locations in the game. I don't know if you can jump back
definitely.
in there. But, the trailer opened in Normandy.
Yeah,
which we
it
saw
opened in
earlier.
Normandy.
We know we go to the Hurtgen Forest.
The Hurtgen Forest, which was
we shot,
second
they
demo I
show
saw.
a lot of, so I assume that's there.
Yeah. This was the second sort of full demo I saw, which was really interesting. The demo started off in this really beautiful, serene, lush, green creek bed where you're walking along. It's quiet, it's gorgeous. You have you can just hear the sounds of birds chirping in the water running. And it was one of those I was like, well, if I don't move forward, maybe we could just stay here. We don't have to fight anyone. But then all of a sudden, Germans spotted you, and sort of all hell broke loose. And this is what we're seeing a little bit here of the German artillery started raining on you, and like right here, these shots of these trees exploding. This is the moment that, to me, felt the closest to what these creators have done with literal horror since Dead Space. The sounds of the trees just shattering above you and raining down on you, and these giant mammoth branches impaling squad mates, and just, crushing people and hearing the screams and blotting out the sun was like legitimately terrifying in a really interesting way. And I feel like, given Sledgehammer's pedigree, I really think they want to lean into that aspect of the war, which I find super interesting. And if that's what the set pieces are for this game going forward, then I'm totally into that.
There's some brutal head smashing.
There was some pretty brutal head smashing. See more of Hurtgen Forest. We know we're gonna fight the Battle of the Bulge. They also said they want to do some of these major battles that people haven't seen before in games and movies.
So I think I'd love to hear your impressions of the visuals. I think Horizon Zero Dawn is kind of the new standard for graphics.
I would say it sets the benchmark right now. This, it's tough to compare because Horizon, you have sort of just the freedom to go anywhere, whereas Call of Duty, this is an open world. This is going to be sort of very narrow, driven paths. That being said, that creek bed especially was one of the most gorgeous outdoor environments I've ever seen in a game. And this game was definitely, the game's not done yet. This game's still 6 months out till November 3rd.
Yeah, sure. We do actually have a question on Twitter, which we can pull up here. Remember, you can tweet your questions at IGN. It's me, RC West says, how is this going to be different from any other World War II game?
Yeah.
Or any other Wii game?
Very different than Wii games. I think one of the big things, honestly, is, like we've brought up, that it's been 9 years since, a major franchise in World at War has visited World War II. So not only has technology advanced so much in the 9 years, we're on different consoles now. I mean, technology has advanced so much in the last 3 years. Like, I was talking to them about, what's been the biggest change in terms of how you can tell your story hardware-wise from 3 years ago. And they showed me a model of Kevin Spacey's face, which at the time was like, oh my God, it's Kevin Spacey. This looks exactly like him. And then it was side by side with Josh Duhamel's face, and it looked like comparing like last gen to next gen. Which 3 years in technology is a lifetime. And so they said that their biggest, the biggest thing they're excited about, especially with stuff like HDR and sort of Scorpio and 4K, is the use of HDR lighting. And it is the fact that the lighting can be so natural that you can finally sort of tell a story and have a character say something through a facial expression that you don't need to write the dialogue for, which I think is interesting because movies do that, but up until now, games couldn't really do that.
Sure.
And then also going into how it's different than other World War II games is the fact that, again, they told me all this on paper. I didn't get to see any of it in action, so take it all with a grain of salt. Yeah. But they said they don't want to shy away from sort of the social mores of the time, like anti-Semitism and racism and sexism. And they brought up a cast of characters, which was just like, I think it was maybe 12 or 14 pictures of characters, and that included women and people of color and kids and the elderly. And these aren't the people you're playing at, but these are the people you're going to interact with on the campaign.
Sure. Yeah. I think they talked about how at some point in the game, you run into an African-American platoon. Yeah. And there's some friction.
And there's going to be friction because that's what 1940s Earth was, which is insane. And yeah, I mean, if they're able to lean into that and actually handle it well, which I don't know if they can, I don't know if they will, but if they do, I think it's going to be something really cool.
Now, we do have some other screenshots that we can pull up here, and this is the first screenshots of the game, so it's definitely worth taking a look. And I think
absolutely.
Maybe you can enlighten us a little bit here.
We're talking about the gameplay being sort of more grounded and human, and the fact that you're not this superhero anymore, and that is sort of in every different aspect. That's in terms of actual gameplay. It seems right here. This is sort of the medic approach. I think I don't think that this obviously isn't in game, but this is like your player character being downed and having to rely on a teammate to come over, and it's not a player controlled teammate because everything we saw here is the single player. Right. And we'll touch on the sort of tease they had at co-op later. But I just love the idea that this is a 19-year-old who's scared. He doesn't want to be here, but he's here and he has to deal with it, which is something so far removed from what Call of Duty has ever been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you play as Ronald Red Daniels.
Red Daniels,
19-year-old kid from Texas. But you apparently play as him as only 95% of the game.
Yeah, so that's, majority of the game. And they said that they've never wanted him to do something that character couldn't do. And so what I took from that is if there's going to be a set piece level where you're flying a plane or something like that then you are going to assume the role of someone else. Because I imagine this kid isn't a pilot. You're sort of going to assume the role of someone who can do those extraordinary things.
I see. We do have a couple other screenshots I think we can bring up too
here. So going back to the D-Day screenshots, that's obviously that iconic level that we've sort of 20 years ago, Saving Private Ryan popularized that and put that mental image in everyone's mindset of the soldier picking up his arm and carrying it. And the interesting thing the developers told us is that they want when they talk about horror, they want the player to not be a voyeur to this, but to have to actually experience it. You're seeing it in things like D-Day. You're seeing it in things like this, where this, if this is either you or if this is someone you come up against, this is going to be terrifying. The same thing with Hurtgen Forest, which I think we have another image of Hurtgen Forest here. Playing that level, it felt unlike anything I'd played in a Call of Duty game. Oh, so I didn't play the level. I saw it play.
Sure.
But it felt like something different than any other Call of Duty game. Like I said here, this is a moment of peace and tranquility, which quickly turns into absolute hell on earth. Which again, if they're able to kind of juxtapose those two polar opposites, I think they have something really cool on their hands.
There are some catchphrases we were picking up on during the presentation.
So
Boots on the ground.
If it wasn't 10 a.m., we'd do a drinking game.
Yeah.
Boots on the ground.
Yep.
And then Visceral.
Visceral.
Which I find funny
because Sledgehammer comes from Visceral.
Because Sledgehammer comes from Visceral. My promise to you, fans, is that we will never publish the word boots on the ground. I can't actually assure that because there's possibly an article on the site.
Yeah.
Neither of us will ever publish.
Okay, yeah, neither of us are going to write boots on the ground. You're going to hear enough of that.
Yeah, but the Visceral sort of background is interesting, especially with that final reveal of what the co-op mode is. So the co-op is a story mode, which beforehand we were like, oh, okay, so maybe it's the story of 4 different troops.
Yeah.
But it sounds like their co-op mode is obviously Nazi zombies.
Yeah.
And they said at the end of the war, the Third Reich, in a final last-ditch effort, decided to do something wacky.
Some experiments.
Yeah. So this definitely, when we talked about World War II games on this gen, that was the sort of the Wolfenstein expansion was rooted in horror and zombies and everything. So I don't know if it's something like that. I'm totally on board for that.
Yeah, I think that's. We know they're going to be showing us more of the multiplayer at E3. I wonder if they're going to be showing off the zombies or the.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one thing we said is that they wanted this to be the most open and transparent sort of cycle up to launch that they've had so far. So I feel like they're going to, like a lot of AAA games have done, be sort of very open with the development process and showing stuff on a pretty regular basis. And yeah, we know at E3 it's going to be the full multiplayer reveal. Like I said, I imagine on stage at Sony, I feel like that's where they're going to lead first.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of the multiplayer details we got, sort of the class-based system is now called divisions, which is sort of going to be how you don't choose you choose like whether you want to be infantry or armored, and then you're ranking up and sort of moving your ranks through like